I think being in an academic setting most of the time, we have like a conception of research that is, I think, quite narrow and like kind of existing in this like theoretical realm. Community engaged research is very explicitly about furthering the needs of communities or community organizations in a way that I think is really, really productive, and it brings these people with different skill sets together in this very collaborative way.
We did a project on inclusion policy and mechanisms analysis in Kenya for the organization Basic Needs, Basic Rights.
The first thing we worked on was a literature review of what social inclusion is when we're dealing with persons with psychosocial disabilities.
And the other component was creating a database that has the policies that we looked into as well as the mechanisms from the policies. That way, when BNBR looks at it, it's really good for writing grants. For example, they can find the evidence needed to prove to the government or whoever is funding the project that, hey, there is a gap here and we need support in this way.
So we're part of the engagementship for a community organization. It is a community mental health care provider based in Nairobi, Kenya. And the main thing that we're working on is the nurse scholarship training program. So Camille sponsors nurses to get psychiatric training, and after getting that diploma, the nurses come back to Camille to do a 5-day mentorship and actually turn that knowledge into practice. And the end goal for that is the nurses that are now trained go back to their home counties and disseminate that knowledge and practice into their original clinics and become sort of a pillar for mental health care in their original county.
So our role is essentially to write up a survey, to then interview the nurses and be able to assess the program, the impacts of it, and then hopefully have some quantifiable data to then be able to take it in, present it to the government to show and highlight the progress that Camille has done and the impact that they've had in the healthcare sector.
Hi, my name is Sarah Kwok. I am part of the AfriPads engagementship under ORICE. The problem that we sought to address was focused on socioeconomic well-being for women in Uganda. This was specifically women working at the AfriPads factory, and we sought to address the economic inequality of women and economic mobility more generally.
And we're wanting to see if this sort of employment has any positive impacts on the empowerment and on the actual agency of women in the community, and how that influences their ability to make decisions in their household, their community impact, and so on. And working with ORICE has really given me those skills that I needed. Leading a community research project, learning those skills alongside my team has been really great for my academic and career goals, because I am hoping to do sort of environmental politics research, community-based research, and so on. So I think that it's really given me a chance to practice those skills, which is the best way of learning something, I think.
And we're both currently working on different human rights projects. So I'm working with the BC Museums Association on a project that has to do with repatriation. A group of 4 of us were tasked with analyzing all the different repatriation policies throughout the province, and then seeing how we could better align those policies with UNDRIP, and then creating a practical tool for smaller museums who either lack the time, money, resources to facilitate repatriation so that they can better aid their process.
Yeah, and I'm working with the YWCA to analyze the economic costs of gender-based violence in BC with the greater goal of eventually labeling gender-based violence as an epidemic in British Columbia. So we are working specifically looking at the healthcare costs in BC and creating a huge executive summary of all the research statistics and costs already out there to help then support the YWCA's research as they hire an economist to actually find these exact numbers, and then doing a call to action to the provincial government to then, like I said, hopefully label gender-based violence as an epidemic in BC.
One key takeaway for me from my research and just the course in general is to not discount the value in having the conversation. I feel like my project is not really relevant to like the lives of a lot of my friends or like even my family talking about museum space, but I really think that having conversations about human rights and how they're actually applied into real life settings and ripples and compounds into greater action, even if it's just spreading awareness.
as undergraduate students, we have these experiences out there that we can make a difference in our communities. In this course, I get to work with this community partner. We meet up every week, and she tells us how much this little research we are doing is making such an impact. And typically in undergraduate courses, you're used to that lecture, those papers, and just kind of feel often that what you're learning can't be applied. But in this course and with this project, we see that firsthand. Everything we are doing is making an impact and is making a difference. So kind of letting everyone know about this, and like that takeaway that even at such a small scale, what we do helps, and what we do can make a difference.
So the Scholars to Prison Engagementship aims to raise awareness and advocacy for scholars that have been imprisoned around the world. This could be for a variety of reasons. For example, the scholar that I worked on primarily, Marfa Rabkova, you can see on this side of the poster here. She was imprisoned for her human rights and democracy advocacy. For me, one of the most impactful moments was realizing how compassionate people are, how motivated so many people are to help. There was one particular meeting we had with a representative from a member of Congress, and you could just see that this person we were meeting with, she was also engaged, she was also passionate, she also really wanted to be there to support us. And just that feeling of camaraderie across with other advocates who also are really seeking to make human rights progress was something that was really, really meaningful, and also inspired a lot of hope. Since human rights advocacy can be a slow process, having perseverance is of the utmost importance, and seeing that there were people with power who wanted to help makes all the difference. It has been such an engaging opportunity. I have learned so much from it. Being willing to find these human connections, find these personal connections, since that is really the beauty of doing this community engaged work, is that we're working for real people with real dreams, with real goals that we're trying to make happen.
So my main thing that drew me to ORICE was that it's community engaged research. As someone who has done a lot of research before, a lot of it is very stale in the sense that it's very much subject and then observer, right, and researcher. And in that sort of research relationship, it very much felt a bit sterile, and it felt sort of, there was an implicit power dynamic that I wasn't really comfortable with. And at times it was also that I wasn't sure if my research work was actually translating into actual change for someone. And so it felt kind of necessary for me to turn my skills into something that could actually result in benefit for the people that I'm supposed to be working for or supposed to be sort of supporting.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Grace. I think community-based research adds a lot more context, adds a lot more depth to the project. And as an undergraduate student, I feel like that's an amazing experience for us to have. ORICE gives the opportunity to connect yourself with the research that you're doing and really see the big scope of the impact that you're having.
And I think like the most fulfilling thing for me when I was completing this project was getting that vindication that this was something that they were going to be able to use to affect real change. And I think that's just one of the most incredible parts about community engaged learning as a whole.
I applied for this program, honestly, really last minute, and it was one of the best things that I've ever done. It completely changed my life and my career trajectory, and I'm so glad that I did. I think that people think that they don't necessarily have the types of experience that organizations like ORICE or just other kind of organizations on campus or community are looking for, when in fact they do. But above all, I would say take initiative and come willing to learn.